All right, hey everybody. I recently flew across the country to go watch my favorite team play in the NBA Finals. It unfortunately did not go well that night or in the long run for everything, but I'm going to give you the whole story right now. So, as you can kind of see from some of the stuff in the background here, my favorite team, based on the title of this video, is in fact the Indiana Pacers. You can see kind of right over there. I got some Pacer stuff on the shelf. You can kind of see, let me move the mic. Right there, we have a chair from the field house in Indianapolis. Depending on when you were around, you might know it as Conseco Fieldhouse, Bankers Life Fieldhouse, and now Gainbridge Fieldhouse. So, I've been a diehard Pacer fan basically my entire life. I grew up in Greenwood, Indiana, just, 10 miles or so south of the field house. And our family had season tickets pretty much my whole life. And so that was kind of the team we always watched. Obviously, we love the Colts as well. But, the Pacers was kind of the team that me and my whole family really, really kind of got behind. My earliest memory of the Pacers actually was the 2000 NBA Finals. I was 7 years old at the time, almost 8. And I remember watching one of the games in Los Angeles vividly, watching it in our kitchen at the time. And so, that's kind of where my love for the Pacers really started from what I remember. Reggie Miller being obviously the mainstay of that. I'm looking in my closet office here of a picture of him nailing a three in New York City with every Knick fan in the world's face like this in it. Obviously loved Reggie Miller growing up. Al Harrington, Rick Smits, all the guys from those early days. Jalen Rose, Jermaine O'Neal, a bunch of guys back then. And so that love kind of went into my first job, actually, was when I was a ball boy for the Indiana Pacers from 2007 to 2010. So basically from 2000 to 2007, just watched games. Was a normal fan like everybody else. But then I kind of took it that obsession a little bit, to the next level. And that job was awesome. We can kind of get more into that, maybe in a little bit later video. I can give you the ins and outs of what it's like to be a ball boy in the NBA. But just always have loved the Pacers. They've been my favorite sports team overall, for 25 years now, and been to hundreds of games as a fan, as an employee. And so, as Pacer fans would know, in that time frame, there's been a ton of obstacles that have come up in their way. First it was they could never get past Michael Jordan. And then it finally seems like, in the early mid 2000s, they finally have this team that's going to get it done. And Ron Artest jumps in the stands and starts fighting people in Detroit. And there goes that. That seemed like the best chance the Pacers would ever have in my lifetime, based on how the NBA is set up. The NBA for the longest time has been a league of stars, a league of big cities. The Bostons, the Los Angeles, the New Yorks. Those are the places that, get these players, rightly or wrongly, in free agency, in the draft. It always seems like they end up in these cities. So getting those superstars to come play for the Indiana Pacers is just kind of not going to happen unless you just kind of luck into them, really. And so when the brawl happened, I would have been like 12 years old, maybe. I remember specifically watching that with my dad in the basement. My friend was over, and we were actually kind of roughhousing on the other side of the house at the time when that game was going on, and my dad kind of got mad and said, knock it off, get over here and sit down and watch this game. And, the Pacers were up by, 15, 16, whatever it was late in that game against the Pistons. And, it seemed like, oh, okay. I mean, that's early in the year, so obviously a lot can happen. A lot did happen, but it's like, okay, well, this is early in the year, but these are the kind of the two premier teams in the league. And, that foul happens. the end of the game, Ron Artest lays on the scores table, and the rest is history. The Pacers, that season's ruined. That regime is pretty much ruined. And really, honestly, from what people will recall who are Pacer fans and who lived in Indianapolis at the time, the Pacers really fell out of good graces with the people of Indianapolis in that time frame, and they did kind of for a little while because they went from those winning ways in the 90s and early 2000s, and then they had this team of guys who, rightly or wrongly, they've all come out and been very apologetic over the years, and they seem like they've been re-embraced now with Ron Artest and Steven Jackson and I don't know, maybe not Jamal Tinsley as much. Don't feel like we really ever see him anymore, but they really kind of fell out of the graces with the people of Indianapolis, and there's not that type of behavior at the time was not what people really cared about or wanted. They didn't really like it, and obviously the ascension of the Colts at that time with Peyton Manning and them, and in that early to mid 2000s time frame, they were always super good. They did end up winning the Super Bowl in that time frame, so it was kind of an extra worst case scenario, which jumping into the stands and fighting people when you have a championship caliber team, you would think is the worst case scenario, but then the team right down the street is also one of the best teams in sports and has a generational player in Peyton Manning. And so that was kind of a worst case scenario. And so where's it even going? Oh, I was just talking, so all the obstacles they've overcome. So they had that. Then they had some down years, post the first Rick Carlisle run, which I was a part of. I was a ball boy for those 3 years with Jim O'Brien. And then we're getting back on track now. We've had Danny Granger for a couple years. But then, like I said, in the 90s, could never get past Michael Jordan. And now they can't get past LeBron James. So the early, 2010s, we have a young Paul George. We have Danny Granger gets hurt. Never really comes back. It's never really the same again. We have the 2 years in the Eastern Conference Finals, the 2 years after that with Paul George, and this seems like it's going to be Paul George's team. Again, the only way we're ever going to get this superstar in town is by drafting them, which they did with Paul George. And they have 2 really good years. It seems like, okay, this team's going to be around for a little while, and we're going to have a chance to compete. And then Paul George snaps his leg in July with Team USA. Never really the same again for the Pacers. A couple years later, after he comes back, he wants out. Gets out. Okay, we lost our franchise player now. We're back to square one. Seems like maybe they hit a home run and luck out and get Victor Oladipo. Seems like he could potentially be. He did never seem like he was going to be a better player or a player of the caliber of Paul George. But he was like not that far off. It seemed like they really kind of lucked out with him. Horrific leg injury for him as well. Never the same again. Out of town. Falls out of good graces with everybody. So then, well, we'll get to the last one because now the last hurdle now that we've had here is the worst one by far. But we'll get to that. This is about my trip to Indianapolis recently. So, a couple years go by now. We get Tyrese Halliburton. We get Pascal Siakam. Rick Carlisle has now come back and is the coach again. And last year, this team goes on a nice run to the Eastern Conference Finals. Everyone tells them it was a fluke. We sat around all year and heard everyone from Milwaukee and from New York sit here and tell the Pacers and their fans, you guys are a fluke. Just wait until next year. We're going to kick your ass. You guys might have got us this year, but we're going to kick your ass next year. And so what did the Pacers do? They start off going something like 10-15. Seemed like a pretty unremarkable year coming our way. Maybe the haters were right. But they were not. As we all saw, the Pacers went on what is one of the more unbelievable runs in the history of the NBA. From January 1st on till just, unfortunately, this last Sunday. Not only did they not get their ass kicked by the Knicks or the Bucks, like everyone told us for a whole year, the Pacers beat them worse, both of them, this time around. Last year, they beat the Bucks, I believe, in 6 games. This year, they beat the Bucks in 5. Last year, they beat the Knicks in 7 games. and this year they beat them in 6. Pretty convincing fashion, obviously, by both of them. So this takes me now to Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, where the Pacers win and move on to the NBA Finals for the first time in 25 years, where I'm sitting back in my parents' kitchen as a little kid. And thankfully, I have who I think she is either still sitting out there listening to me right now or has gone to bed, a wonderfully supportive wife who lets me indulge into all my silly sports things that I like, as you can see in this room here, trips I can go on, this, that, and the other. And she's not really into sports at all. She haphazardly gets into it, likes to wear the t-shirts and stuff like that, but she's never super invested in it. So, and for context, we do not live in Indiana anymore. We live in South Florida. We have a 3, almost 4-year-old daughter, and all of our family lives in Indiana, either in central or northeast Indiana. So it's basically just us down there. Now, we've lived down here for a while now, so we do have a nice, support system of friends, and we have family who comes and visit all the time, but it's basically just us down here. So if one of us leaves town for something, the other person's pretty much on their own for a couple days, or however long the other person's gone. And so I once the Pacers made the NBA Finals, I was saying to myself, I was like, I've been such a big Pacer fan for so long. I don't really think I can miss this. I need to get back and, be able to experience the city like I did not get to the last time they made the finals, because, again, I was 7 years old. And she basically was just like, yeah, do it. Like, who cares? Just go. Easier said than done for some people. We have the money to do some stuff that some other people may not. And so, it's a little easier because of that. But, she jumped right at the spot. Yeah, just go ahead and go do it. And when I decided to go, I wasn't really even planning on going to any of the games, because, like, the stuff is games are so expensive, and you go to that field house so many times, and it's almost as like a mental barrier of like, okay, for me to go to this game that I can go sit in the balcony for on a normal night for, $10-20, you're going to spend, $600-700 to do this now. So I was like, not even that I don't have $600-700 to spend. I was just like, I just don't know that I want to do that. So that wasn't even in the cards. I was just going to go. I wanted to go up and experience the city. I wanted to just kind of be around and soak in all the Pacer love that Pacer energy that everyone was getting. Because the run they have gone on throughout the playoffs up to that point was just amazing. Buzzer beaters, big time wins, never getting the respect that they rightfully deserve, which, they never have, whether rightfully or wrongfully over, the 25 years I've been watching them, they never have been given that respect. And so I just had to be there. I knew I had to be there. And so I booked my flight. I flew up the day of Game 3. And so I had my flight all booked, and I had, 7 or 8 days to look forward to that, because they stretch out these finals for so long that it was just, I was super excited for it. And even more so after Game 1, where obviously Tyrese Halliburton had the game-winning shot, give them the win Game 1 when, no one really gave them much of a chance in this series at all to begin with. And it was just awesome. And it was a very frustrating game. Obviously, they ended up winning, so it was awesome. It's probably the highlight of the series. I would argue, even with the Thunder winning, the Thunder didn't really have like a big-time signature moment that I remember. Obviously, I'm a little biased as a Pacer fan, but nothing compares to that Game 1 winner that Tyrese Halliburton had. And so I had the trip booked. I was ready to go. Oh, man. They're coming back to Indianapolis at a minimum now tied 1-1. And that's exactly what happened. So I flew up the day of Game 3, and I flew a couple hours west of me here, over on the Gulf Coast side, because I wanted to make sure I landed in town early enough if I decided to go to Game 3, which in hindsight I wish I had gone to, because obviously, A, they won that game, and B, the ticket prices for that game were a lot less than Game 4. And so I flew in early enough and landed about 1 o'clock, and I went downtown right away. I went to the field house immediately, pretty much, and wanted to just check out the merch and check out and see, what was going on. The Pat McAfee show was going on outside there, and so it was just great. The city was buzzing, the town was buzzing, everyone was ready to and rocking for their first, home NBA Finals game in 25 years. And so I did not go to Game 3, and I actually went to my brother's house in Greenwood, which he actually wasn't even there, but he was in Ireland with bad timing on his behalf. But we, what's going on with this? So bad timing on his behalf. And, but my sister-in-law and my oldest brother's family and my sister's family, they were all there because they have actually a pub in the basement there at their house. And so that pub is called McCarty's Pub if you want to find it on Instagram, or whatever social media it is on, but you can find it on there. And so I wanted to watch it with them because I wasn't going to Game 3. And so I watched it there. Obviously, it's a game they won. It's a great game. It was an awesome experience that I'll remember forever, spending that time with my family, getting to watch the game. It was an awesome time. And so now the Pacers, who nobody picked or gave a chance in this series at all, even the Pacers fans, I didn't expect much out of this series. Now the Pacers are up 2-1. And so I had a contingency plan in place where if the ticket prices got to a certain threshold for Game 4, I had some people lined up who were ready and willing to go with me. Now the issue is the Pacers win Game 3. Now they're up 2-1. So those ticket prices went for Game 4. And that's a Friday night. So Friday night, Pacers are up 2-1 right now. Those ticket prices were up in the $800 range. And I was like, all right, I don't think I want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go downtown. I'm going to go to a bar or something and watch it there. So Friday comes around. My friends and I, we meet up. We do like a mini bar crawl. So we meet up about noon, Slippery Noodle on the south side of town. And the tickets are in like the $850 price range. And I was just like, I don't think I want to do that. That just seems crazy. So we go to Slippery Noodle. Then we eat lunch, have a drink. Then we go to the Brothers. And there was a dip. It probably dipped 25-30% kind of out of the blue. And so we were sitting at Brothers. There was a nice little dip that happened. And I was talking to my friends. I was like, okay, like, what's the plan here? And so we got everything lined up. And then it seemed like the dip was over. We kind of missed it. We're like, all right, whatever. Like, we weren't even planning on going there. So then we're walking over to Kilroy's. And I look at my phone, and there's one set of 4 tickets that dipped quite a bit again. And I just went for it. They're more expensive than I would have originally planned on doing it, but not by much. It got pretty close to that price point that we had set. And so, we're a few drinks in now, and now we know in, 4 or 5 hours, we're walking into that field house to watch the Pacers in the NBA Finals. 2 of my best friends from college. We were in college, or I was in college at Ball State from, 2011 to 2015. So, that's the 2 of those Eastern Conference championship or Eastern Conference final seasons happened then. So me and those 2 guys were watching the Pacer games all the time. I think even in the 2014 season, I want to say, when they were the 1 seed and they started off like 20-1 or something crazy like that. We would watch all those games, that fall. And so now we're going to go to the NBA Finals, and so we're just off the chain. We're so excited. Now we're at Kilroy's, and then we go to the pub. Then we go to O'Reilly's, and we try to go a bunch of places. I think we ended up going like 4 or 5 different places, doing our little mini indie bar crawl. And then we think, okay, all right, 7:00, we're going to the NBA Finals, and I couldn't believe it. I've sat around for all these years saying it is literally impossible for the Indiana Pacers to win the NBA championship. All the heartbreak all over these years, all the not getting these players, watching everyone else in our division, kind of stumble into these players or stumbled into these teams, and it just never seems like it's going to happen for the Pacers. And so I just try to tell myself this whole time, I'm like, you know what, regardless of what happens here, this is awesome. And I'm so happy and thankful that I have a chance to do this. And so we go into game 4, and our Pacers are playing great. They're playing great. They're up 2-1 in the series. And it's seeming like they could do the impossible here and go up 3-1. I think in the third quarter at one point they were up by maybe 12 points or something like that. And I looked at my buddy next to me. I said, this doesn't even feel real. I said, we're watching our Indiana Pacers in the NBA Finals at home against, statistically, I don't know about the eye test, but statistically, one of the best teams, of all time. And it didn't even feel real. And it wasn't real. Because the Pacers did end up losing that game. Of course, the one home game that they did end up losing was the one that I went to and spent a bunch of money to go to. But I'm still very happy and thankful that I was able to go to that. It's a dream for any sports fan out there to be able to watch your team, play for a championship. And although technically they weren't, like, the championship wasn't going to be decided that night when I went, it's still the NBA Finals, and it's something I had never been able to do. And it's not like something that you can just manufacture one year and just say, okay, I'm going to go watch the Pacers in the NBA Finals this year. Obviously, they have to make the NBA Finals, which has only happened twice. And so, when an opportunity like that kind of jumped up, I had to just kind of say, all right, well, I'm here. I might as well just do it. I won't regret going, although, in hindsight, they lost that game, and, well, we'll get to what happened in the rest of the series. But so, yeah, definitely a bucket list item. I'll say that. I have on the wall over there, right there, I have the program from the game. Obviously, I have the Halliburton shoes. But, yeah, so going from the chance to go up 3-1 and you be there in the house to see it happen, to walk out of that game tied 2-2, it was pretty deflating. The downtown was extremely deflating after that game, walking around. And thankfully, this isn't a shot at the Thunder by any means, but thankfully the Thunder are kind of like the Pacers. They're a small market team. They don't have a big national fan base. And so, you're not dealing with a bunch of Thunder fans at the game. There was a few, like there naturally was going to be at any game, but there wasn't very many. And so, thankfully you didn't have to deal with all that. We did have some kind of a section over that conveniently did not have anything to say throughout the entire game until they took the lead at the end of the game, and then they tried to kind of puff their chest out a little bit, which, you're a fan of the winning team, so, okay, but, you were pretty quiet for most of the game. I didn't hear anything out of you until, the end of the game, and so it is what it is, but. So now it's instead of being up 3-1 a game, they're leading up by double digits late, which I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander got away with a push off and a travel on that shot that he hit, but I digress. Now it's 2-2, lose pretty easily in game 5. In game 6, my brother, the one who was in Ireland, he had bought tickets to game 6. Him and his wife bought tickets to game 6. And spent a bunch of money on them. And I think by the time the game started, or at some point during the day on game 6, they had dropped like 75 or 80% of what he paid for them. So, Thunder have a chance to win the championship. No one really wants to see that. But that's, the best game the Pacers played. They smoked them. I mean, I think they didn't win by 17. They pulled their people super early. Tyrese Halliburton didn't have to play, obviously, with the calf strain. They probably would have won by 35 had they not pulled everybody out that night. But so now we get to game 7. And this is going to go down in my sports life as the worst day and the biggest what if I will ever experience. And we've had a lot of I went into Game 7 thinking, okay, they have they can win this game. It's not. I had no question that they could win this game. Now, did I think they were going to 100%? No, I thought it was literally a 50-50 coin flip. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think anybody who tells you otherwise and says, oh, I really thought the Pacers were going to win, or I really, really thought the Thunder were going to win, like, I think they're lying to you. I think they're being delusional. I think based on what you saw in Game 6 and the fact that the Thunder just, like, they really kind of cracked under that pressure. And side note, we'll get to it. They didn't really play. I didn't think that unbelievably offensively in Game 7. I mean, obviously they always play great defense, but I was not impressed with them offensively in Game 7, which could have been a very big problem for them had we not had our hearts ripped out and stomped on the ground in front of us about 8 minutes into that game. Tyrese Halliburton, franchise player, the person that most Pacer fans have been waiting for forever, or at a minimum since, Paul George left, comes out. Has he had the best series of his career? Absolutely not. Has he had an amazing postseason run? Unbelievable. But this series particular, wasn't his best. He had some good games. He had a couple of highlight moments, but he had some bad games too. And obviously he was dealing with the calf strain. And he put it all on the line and said, I'm going out there and playing. This is Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And he comes out on fire. 3 3-pointers in like 8 minutes. He was feeling it. He was talking trash. It seemed as if we were about to have a generational Tyrese Halliburton game, put the last stamp on this amazing run, and the Pacers were going to be NBA champions. And again, I'm a Pacer fan. If you're a Thunder fan listening to this, you are free to disagree with me. You won the title. I'm just speaking in hypotheticals here. If he does not get hurt, the Pacers win the NBA title. And again, that's a big what if. There's a million things that could have happened. It just seemed like the momentum of the series that it was going. And if he had been the missing piece. If he had showed up a little bit more earlier in the series, this thing is over in 6. It's not going to Game 7. The Pacers win in 6 if he, puts it together in Game 4 there. But I digress. He comes out on fire. This is the game we've been waiting for. He's here. He's ready to go. And he falls down, turns the ball over. And in real time, it just seems like a silly turnover, and he falls down. It's like, oh, what the heck? But then obviously it turned out to be a lot worse than that. And the feeling that I had when they showed that replay, and you saw his Achilles just, you just at that moment. Not that obviously Game 7 of the NBA Finals is the thing every fan dreams of, every player dreams of. But at that time, it's just like, not that you forget that that's going on, but it's just like, it's such a deflating thing to have happen. And just to watch yourself, the city, the franchise, the players, it just sucked everything out of them. Right when that happened. And I think some of the players have come out and since kind of said we just couldn't get over that happening, and I don't blame them at all. And you just kind of sit there the rest of the game just kind of like, what the heck? How did this just happen? And then you had to kind of regroup a little bit, because at halftime, lo and behold, the Pacers are up by 1. And that's kind of where I came in, saying the Thunder did not really impress me offensively in Game 7, which is why it sucks so bad when Tyrese Halliburton goes down, because obviously great playmaker, he gets people open, and offensively when he's going, he is I think their best 3-point shooter overall. And when those are flowing, everything's going better for everybody. And so they come out in third quarter, and it's just kind of, they go on a little run, and the Pacers just never seem like they can kind of call back. TJ McConnell seemed like he might. It was a very, very funny image to think about TJ McConnell being double teamed in Game 7 of the NBA Finals in the second half because they could not stop him. They're going to have, obviously they end up winning. So kudos to the Thunder, but they will have nightmares about TJ McConnell forever. The people who tried, Casey Wallace will have nightmares about TJ McConnell forever. Just all these little mini runs that he would go on. It's insane. But so yeah, you go from going into a game thinking you might see your ultimate sports dream occur to not only that not happening, but now the next 18 months, your franchise is basically put on hold at a minimum. It could be worse. You know, they could say, we're not putting this on hold. We're going to kind of do like a little soft rebuild here. And I just want to say, if Tyrese Halliburton ever does hear this, it would be impossible for me to have any more respect for you than I do based on what you did for the Pacers, for the city of Indianapolis, for all the Pacer fans out there. Going out there and putting your body literally on the line in Game 7 for everybody. That will never be forgotten. And you already were a Pacers legend, but you are immortal now in the Pacers realm. I hope that you're able to come back and we're able to all finish this story together. We never got it done with Reggie Miller. Paul George leaves. You are the most deserving guy since Reggie Miller to have this based on what you did. Maybe even more so. I mean, obviously Reggie was loyal, but this is, a new for everybody. We're getting to this point, the closest that we've ever been to winning the NBA championship. And you said, you know what? I'm putting it all on the line here for you guys. And I think me and every Pacer fan out there sees that and appreciates that. And so if you ever do hear this, thank you. And we will get to the finish line together. And so with that, I've just kind of been rambling. But yes, I did fly across the country to watch my favorite team in the NBA Finals. Did it end up how I wanted it to that night? No. Did it end up how I wanted it to in the series? Almost. Probably would have. But that's not how it works. And so we're back to the drawing board. Do we have to wait another 25 years for the Pacers to get the NBA Finals? Do we have to wait 50 years for them to get back to the NBA Finals? Or can we get back and finish the job? And that's what I know every Pacer fan wants. I think that's what every Pacer fan deserves. So NBA, if you're going to rig anything, like I think you do sometimes, I feel like it should be now rigged in our favor for the first time ever, based on what we just had to go through. So, Adam Silver, if you hear this, please rig something in our favor here. Maybe sneak us the first pick. We did get our first pick back. The Pacers got the first pick back next week, or their first pick for next season back. Last week they're in the NBA Finals, which, looking back, unbelievably brilliant and savvy move to do. Obviously, this was before Tyrese got hurt, but yeah. So why don't you send us that first pick next year? If for some reason we find ourselves in the lottery, who knows? We still obviously have a very capable team without Tyrese. Are we NBA championship caliber without him? Probably not, but who's to say we don't make a move here while the draft is going on into free agency? Who knows? Now I'm just rambling. But yeah, so if you have any questions or comments about my trip or what I've said here tonight, please feel free to drop them below. That's all I have. I will never think that the Pacers weren't going to win that game had Tyrese Halliburton not gotten hurt. And if you don't believe me, then I don't care, but that's fine. So yeah, I've done a lot of cool stuff in sports throughout my life, through just being a fan or some jobs I've had. I worked as a ball boy for the Pacers. I was in the equipment room for the Indianapolis Colts. I've been equipment manager for the Jacksonville Jaguars at Florida State University, a bunch of different places. So I might do some videos on some of those kind of topics and maybe give you an inside look on how some of that stuff works. And obviously, as you can see here, I like to, collect sports memorabilia and just kind of collect things in general. And so I might do some kind of videos about stuff like that as well. So I appreciate everyone's time, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Thank you.